There's no work here for an old man like you. Go home, you poor old man.
During the interview for the job, the employee in charge of the interview verbally abused the applicant. This is the worst. We can't entrust general work to someone like this. When the general manager lectured him, the interviewing staff member caused a scene. So the general manager and I thoroughly put him in his place. My name is Charles. Currently, I am 49 years old and the president of an electronics manufacturing company. I am the second generation president of Johnson Electronics Industries, founded by my father-in-law, Ron Johnson. Since I have just become president, I am working under the watchful eyes of Ron, the chairman, and our secretary, Katherine, among others. My father also worked at this company as the sales manager. When I was little, the company was smaller, and I attended company events with my father. The employees always treated me kindly. Naturally, the executives have known me since I was a child, and I think of them as my brothers. One day, the plant manager, who is the top on-site executive, brought me Tom's resignation letter. When Katherine opened the door to the president's office, the plant manager burst into the room. Tom is in his 50s and belongs to the jig processing department. His job is to make the tools necessary for fine-tuning the production equipment. Although it may seem like a modest job, the quality of the jigs can drastically change production efficiency. In our company, he truly is the strength behind the scenes. Tom is reticent and struggles with communicating with others, but he is an expert in post-processing and a great role model for the younger craftsmen. Indeed, Tom is respected by the younger staff and is affectionately known as the master. Naturally, Tom's resignation would be a significant loss for our company. I called the general manager to discuss the situation. At the general manager's suggestion, I tried calling Tom, but couldn't reach him. After several unsuccessful attempts, I gave up on the phone and discussed the next steps with the plant manager and general manager. The immediate consequence was a drop in production efficiency. The jig processing department staff collectively struggled to fill Tom's void, but the absence of the master was significantly felt. At this point, there were no other options but to look for new talent. At this time, something terrible was happening within the company, but I was yet to realize it. That's when another issue arose. Once again, the plant manager entered my office looking distra-anxiety, and Katherine was also surprised. The visibly excited plant manager handed me an envelope.
It's a resignation request from Rick.
Rick is an employee in the molding department, where he makes the molds used for resin molding and press processing. He is quiet and keeps to a narrow circle of friends. His skills in mold making are considerable. He is respected by the factory workers as a craftsman and is respected for his quiet dedication to his work, similar to Tom. If Rick also leaves, our company might not be able to operate. Sensing my anxiety, the plant manager blurted out,
Charles, I haven't officially accepted it yet, so how about we both try to persuade Rick to stay?
I suddenly looked up at the plant manager's words. That's an idea. Let's talk in the factory meeting room.
Understood. I'll go call Rick.
Thanks. A few minutes later, Rick joined the plant manager and me in the factory meeting room. Rick, I'm sorry to call you out when you're busy.
No problem. I just finished a job. So, what did you want to talk about?
Apparently confused by the sudden summons, Rick looked perplexed. I heard from the plant manager that you submitted your resignation. Can you tell me why? Rick started talking hesitantly.
My kids have left home, and I was just thinking of retiring early to relax in the countryside.
Is that all? Don't you have any complaints about the company?
Everyone has been very kind to me, and I have no complaints at all.
Rick responded in a soft voice immediately. Could you possibly delay your retirement a little longer? Rick's departure is a major issue for the molding department.
The molding department has plenty of young and talented employees. They'll be fine.
Rick looked calm. It's true that the molding department has many capable employees, but they're still young. When they encounter difficulties, I want Rick to guide them. Could you reconsider? There was a silence for a while.
Understood. If you say so, President, please give me some time to think about it.
Rick said that. At first, I wondered how it would turn out, but in the end, the discussion concluded in a friendly atmosphere. This meant that Rick wouldn't suddenly leave, at least. On the other hand, I couldn't believe the reason Rick was retiring. It was as if he was frightened by something, thinking deeply and choosing his words carefully. Even though he was saying positive things, there was a hint of guilt, and perhaps he was hiding something. With these thoughts, I returned to the president's office. When I got back to the president's office, the internal phone was ringing. Katherine answered the phone.
It's a call from the plant manager.
It seems the plant manager was thinking the same thing.
Charles, about earlier. Did you feel like Rick was hiding something?
The plant manager seemed to have sensed something too. Yes, Rick is usually very confident when talking about his work. I'm sure there's some reason behind this. The plant manager is good at this kind of deduction. Do you agree? Any plan of action?
There's an employee who is close to Rick, so I'll ask him.
Please make sure it doesn't get out. After hanging up, I felt relieved because the plant manager has excellent communication and management skills, and I can leave the factory matters to him, as it always works out well. When I took over as president from Ron, I was continuously told, leave the factory matters to the plant manager. Don't meddle unnecessarily. As I was recalling this, someone knocked on the door of the president's office.
Come in.
Katherine said, and the door opened. The visitor was the general manager. As the general manager entered the president's office, he immediately began to speak. He had what looked like a resume in his hand.
Here's a candidate to replace Tom. His employment history, achievements, and qualifications are impeccable.
I took the documents. Has the hiring been decided?
We've just made an offer. If all goes well, HR will conduct the first interview, and the plant manager will do the second.
While we were talking, the internal mobile phone rang, and the general manager nodded at me and answered the call. I couldn't make out the details of the conversation, but the tone of his voice became brighter, which made me hopeful for good news. The call ended quickly.
Charles, good news. We've set a date for the interview with that candidate.
I'm looking forward to meeting him.
Yes, indeed.
With that, the general manager left the president's office. About a week later, the interview took place. It seemed to go smoothly without any major issues. When Katherine suggested a date for the final interview, I heard a knock on the door. Katherine opened the door, and the general manager entered with a slight bow.
This is serious. The person we interviewed the other day has submitted a declination.
Can you explain in more detail? It was a bolt from the blue.
I've been informed by John, who conducted the interview that day, that it went well and there was talk of a next interview.
What happened after?
John called a young HR employee to see the candidate out to the main gate.
That John, though.
Suddenly, Katherine chimed in.
John doesn't have a great reputation within the company. He tends to cause disturbances. I think we should thoroughly investigate this incident.
It was our mistake to entrust such an important interview to John. I apologize.
The general manager immediately apologized to me. What matters now is seeking the truth. Is there anything else we can do?
Why don't we recreate the same situation?
At Katherine's suggestion, the general manager nodded.
We'll continue to have John play the role of the interviewer. Let's find someone to interview.
It's not that easy to just find someone.
I think it's best if I disguise myself as the candidate the president has been recruiting and be there.
Why is our secretary so suddenly bold and assertive? Both seemed quite enthusiastic about it, but I had two concerns. One was the acting. If John realizes, it's all over. The other was, if we do manage to get a confession from John, how we will handle it. If he has violated any policies or caused damage to the company, disciplinary action would be necessary. If John has a family or a partner, it could impact their lives as well. While I was pondering these things, Monday arrived. In the morning, the general manager came to the president's office. Naturally, the conversation picked up where it left off last week. As I was expressing my hesitations, the landline rang. I excused myself and answered the call, and it was the chairman.
Regarding the HR employees matter, proceed with consideration of the surrounding opinions.
Ron, Chairman, are you aware of this?
I met Katherine at the bowling alley over the weekend with my wife. She said, "The president is too kind."
Looking at Katherine, I noticed a slight smile on her lips. Is that so?
Yes. Maybe I should play the role of the interviewer?
No, John certainly knows the chairman's face.
Right. Then, Charles, you do it. This is an order from the chairman. I'll take responsibility.
With that said, there was no backing out. Understood. I'll do it. After hanging up, Katherine and the HR manager were laughing. It seems Katherine had informed him of the situation while I was on the phone. Now that it's come to this, I have to go through with it thoroughly.
We will create the character setting and a set of hypothetical questions secretly in the secretarial department. If you need to discuss details, please call me anytime.
Thank you.
With that, the HR manager hurried out of the president's office. When I asked Katherine about last weekend, it seems she was originally supposed to meet with her mother-in-law. Ron had joined them unexpectedly, and they went bowling. She told me this while busily working. Katherine took a printed sheet from the printer and handed it to me. She said she had sent the same to the general manager. The attachment space for a photo on the resume had a picture of my father from several years ago. It seemed to have been found in an old company newsletter. Katherine, during her college days, appears to have been part of the drama club, and she can also do makeup to appear older. We confirmed all the steps and discussed the schedule with the general manager. Upon receiving the signal from Katherine, the general manager handed John a fabricated resume and instructed him on the date and time for a fake interview. John seemed a bit reluctant, but the general manager managed to handle him by keeping his spirits up. Even more impressive was saying, "We're recording the interview as training material for our juniors," which got John's consent without any suspicion to install video cameras and an IC recorder in the meeting room for visitors. Thus, as per the pre-meeting agreement, it was decided that John would conduct the interview. On the day of the interview, I had Katherine apply special makeup on me, true to her former drama club membership. Or rather, our secretary is just too talented. We also discussed the outfit beforehand and chose something appropriate. After changing and applying makeup, I discreetly left the office by car and checked in at the main gate. I wrote a fake name in front of the unsuspecting security guard and waited for a young HR employee to greet me. The young employee greeted and introduced themselves politely, then escorted me to the meeting room where the interview would be held. They handled everything sincerely from the main gate to the meeting room. I was pleased to see such employees in the company. I sat down in the chair provided outside the meeting room.
The interviewer has been informed of your arrival. Please wait a moment until they arrive,
They said before going inside. There, I turned on the IC recorder. With that, my spirits rose. After a while, John arrived. Now the real performance began. John urged me into the meeting room. What started in the meeting room was not an interview, but a deception between John and me. To record this, John started the video camera and IC recorder without asking me a single word. Normally, this would be a problem, but I deliberately overlooked it.
Please take a seat there.
I did as I was told and sat down. Aware of being recorded, John started the interview earnestly. However, John's initially proper posture gradually worsened, and his language deteriorated. At this point, I was convinced that John had messed up in a previous interview as well, always brusque and condescending. This would make anyone being interviewed feel uncomfortable. The worst was his question about age.
Looking for a job at 52, huh? You're almost at retirement age. Why leave?
I wanted to try something new.
Really? Or were you pushed out? We have this guy here, socially awkward, can only do one thing, totally useless, yet he came to talk about re-employment after retirement. Planning to stick around after retirement? I asked him, and he quit. I call such people the poor old men at the bottom of society. You're one of them too.
And then John added,
Go home, poor old men at the bottom of society.
John's words were all shocking. It might have been John who pushed Tom into resigning. I was stunned. Understood. I left the meeting room. John returned inside the company. Instead, a young employee came to see me off at the main gate. I thought about refusing, but he said, "We can't just leave a guest unattended." When I casually inquired about John, the talkative young employee suddenly became flustered. Feeling bad for troubling the young employee, I changed the subject. As we reached the main gate, I went through the exit procedures with the security guard and left the premises. Checking my phone, I saw a message from Katherine saying, "All went smoothly," and I got back into my car and returned to the office. Back in the president's office, I removed my disguise and left the follow-up actions to the general manager. He is eager to proceed.
First thing tomorrow morning, I'll check with John. I have to take down the meeting room and review the video footage now, and I'll also collect the IC recorder.
The general manager said that before leaving the president's office. The next morning, after I arrived at the office, the landline rang. It was the general manager.
I've just finished talking with John. He might storm your office with calls or something.
I'll tell the executives to expect his call on their mobiles.
Katherine responded, after which the president's office phone kept ringing. I guessed it was John. This is getting in the way of work.
Why don't you, Charles, just set him straight?
I think I will. As I made up my mind, Katherine hurried to prepare. After she was ready, I told the general manager to bring John along. Sitting with my back to the entrance, they soon arrived. Katherine opened the door and let them in. John burst in angrily.
I conducted the interview properly. Why am I being scolded?
Do you always call people poor old men at the bottom of society during interviews?
I didn't say that.
John seemed to think he could lie his way out. Can you still say that after this? I turned towards John, who was shocked to see my face, since Katherine had done my makeup.
Charles.
I was there, and everything was recorded. This is the worst. We can't entrust HR duties to someone like this. John was not easily deterred.
You violated my rights to my image. I'll sue.
You were instructed beforehand about the recording.
The general manager counted. I joined in the rebuttal. You were the one operating the cameras, right? John frantically tried another defense.
I hold the copyright since I recorded it.
Don't you know?
The general manager quickly said, "Copyright for recordings made during work belongs to the company." With that, John finally quieted down. The general manager didn't ease up.
You talked to Tom in the jig processing department, right? What did you say to him?
Did you call him a poor old man at the bottom of society too?
Tom asked about re-employment after retirement, and I called him a nuisance.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The general manager continued,
I'll bring this matter before the company's investigation committee. According to our internal rules, John will be disciplined.
"Understood."
If there are additional crimes, we will deal with them accordingly.
While the three of us were talking, Katherine suddenly made a proposal.
I have asked around among our peers and various department secretaries, and it seems there are other offenses.
I think the women's network is amazing. Please explain in detail.
All right. To put it succinctly, he was called John Johnson, apparently a relative of the chairman. And when others didn't listen to him, I'll tell the chairman, he threatened them.
The words that came out of Katherine's mouth were shocking. But there is no such relative of the chairman, right?
Yes, I was also concerned, so I confirmed it with the chairman, and he was quite upset.
Thank you. Impersonating a relative of the chairman is unforgivable. The chairman is quite strict about such behaviors. It was good that Katherine backed this up. John, is what Katherine said true?
Yes.
He became very quiet.
What have you done?
The general manager was at a loss for words. After a moment of silence, Katherine started speaking.
I will tell everyone that this is not true. Eventually, it will spread throughout the company.
Please proceed. I'll ask the general manager to handle the relief of those affected.
We will also discuss it at the committee meeting.
At the word relief, Katherine's smile slightly lifted. Thanks to Katherine's quick actions, all employees no longer fear John. Even if John is present, no one speaks to him. John has gone from being an object of fear to like air. Worried, I called the general manager. How has John been behaving lately?
He is isolated at work. It's his own doing, so no one helps or talks to him.
It's the consequence of his past actions. I see. So will the work go smoothly?
Yes, it's fine. John's duties have been reassigned to other employees. I explained the situation and asked them, and everyone agreed to take over.
I could hear the relief in the general manager's voice. That's good to hear.
He just sits at his desk. He probably doesn't even have the energy to call the president anymore.
There was an ease in the voice that immediately denied any concern. Now it should be safe. I see. Then, it's probably safe to lift the phone ban. I'll have Katherine notify the executives.
That sounds good. I'll report back if anything else comes up.
It's good to hear the measures were effective.
After relaying the phone conversation to Katherine, she said this as she contacted the executives. Shortly after, the results of the investigation committee were released. Our company's investigation committee is like a criminal trial. Members include external lawyers, advisory lawyers, and the head of the department to which the employee belongs. Since John is in the general administration, the general manager attended as the head of the department. Of course, the employee is guaranteed a chance to present their case. As an independent body from the president, I cannot intervene. So, I heard this from the attendees, but the committee concluded that John deserves to be fired for his misconduct. Considering he unjustly caused a valuable employee to resign and lacked integrity as an interviewer, there seems to be no alternative but to dismiss him. The general manager directly informed John of this decision. The general manager reported privately, but this kind of rumor spreads very quickly. Soon, it was known throughout the company, and John was fired. In our company, employee resignations are posted on the internal electronic bulletin board. John's name will likely appear there soon. That will only spread the rumor further. It'll likely reach not only employees, but also clients and neighboring companies due to the dorsal and tail fins it gathers. It will be difficult for John to find a job in this area again, but that's self-inflicted. It's none of our concern.
There's someone I want you to interview.
After everything was over, the chairman said. Katherine added,
It's Tom. I think the general manager will be here soon.
Suddenly there was a knock on the door. The general manager entered the president's office and began speaking eagerly.
Is Tom really coming back?
The chairman and Tom are fishing buddies, and the chairman persuaded him.
This will certainly relieve the plant manager.
We immediately conducted an interview with Tom and apologized for the former employee's actions. Tom forgave us. It turns out, later on, that Tom acted to ensure that the general managers were disciplined. Katherine joined us in the meeting room and chatted with Tom. I asked Katherine, who started visiting the factory, about her reason.
I'm learning how to work with metal accessories to make clothes at home.
Where will you wear these?
I'm planning to have you wear them for Halloween.
Our company doesn't celebrate Halloween.
Everyone is excited about it though.
Ever since then, Katherine has been trying to get me into costumes for every occasion. No one seems to stop her, which has recently become my concern. A lot has happened, But work is going smoothly today. With the problematic employee gone, the company is enveloped in a peaceful atmosphere.